Hi, everyone. I'm Gaynor Sinishin. I'm ILTA's Director of Education, and I'm here with David Hanson, who is the Vice President of Compliance with NetDocuments. David, welcome. And will you take a minute to introduce yourself to our attendees?
Thank you. So appreciative of the opportunity of being here with you, with ILTA at this tremendous event as we continue to evolve and adapt to the changing environments because of the pandemic. I lead the compliance department at NetDocuments, and I've been involved in compliance for several years now in understanding how the intersection between customer demands and vendor demands like NetDocuments come together in this evolving journey of compliance and security, how we implement security and validate that back out to customers, to prospects, to other regulatory entities, so that we can demonstrate going down this path of maintaining security in a meaningful way. And through that, we've learned a lot, and we continue to evolve and adapt. And this conference is part of that, is learning and sharing the things that we've been experiencing, particularly in the last year. And so very interested in being part of this process today. So thank you.
Yeah, sounds like you're the perfect person to help us answer some questions that we have. And, I was wondering, are you hearing more about compliance now than you did before the pandemic? And how have the questions changed from law firms and law departments? How have they changed?
That's a great question. And I would say that the interest in compliance has just been on an upward trend for several years, because as more and more entities look to be on the cloud and being connected more and more with other entities, those intersections create security risks. And so there's just been a growing increase in general about security and how people are compliant with rules and regulations. But the pandemic has shifted that conversation in some very important ways. One, a significant focus on how do you keep people secure when nobody's in the office? Everyone's working from home or they're mobile, and that. How do you manage data? All of that important information, the crown jewels of your law firm, how do you keep that safe when, again, everyone is not centrally located in an office that's locked down, but instead you've got them in remote locations and operating from home? And so we've seen the shift go from a more generalized enterprise focus, and that's still there, but now very specific questions about use cases that have been driven by the pandemic on the security of individuals that are mobile, individuals at home, in offices when staffing is low. How do you still maintain security there? How do you keep functions operational when all your people are not there, but all your infrastructure may be located there? So the questions just continue to grow, but now we have these specific focuses that have been impacted by the pandemic. And then there's just the general thing. We're seeing more and more ransomware attacks. That's independent of the pandemic, but boy, every week it seems like that's in the news now. And so there's just this rising concern. How do we protect against that? What do we do? And if we do get attacked, have a ransomware attack, what do we do? What's the best practice in that situation? We saw the SolarWinds incident where a vendor had a risk there. So now you have the question of, we didn't have a security risk, but a vendor did, and we've been impacted because of a vendor that we trusted. What do we do in that situation? So specific case questions about how things work on a case-by-case basis, real practical questions now, where before it was a little more check the boxes. Do you have your policies and procedures? Have you got antivirus, anti-malware installed? We still see those questions. Everyone needs to confirm those things are there. But now the questions are getting very focused on specific issues and use cases.
When you look back over the past year, what are the most important compliance issues that you think law practices have faced?
Well, really, they go back to what we just talked about. The biggest challenge has been the shift where people are no longer in a central location, where you could lock them down, they're on a central network, and you controlled that network, access into it, access out of it. Maybe you didn't allow laptops to go home, or the laptops are very restricted. Now it's the exact opposite. Most people are not on a corporate network. They're at home on their little home network or lack of network at all. They're just plugging directly into the internet. And so it's been that paradigm shift of how do you apply security to individual situations, individual users who are not part of a large environment. And then, so you step back and say, well, how do we address that? And that's where you start to see that there are solutions that enterprises can put in place to reach out and can manage, laptops remotely and help users remotely. But it's a paradigm shift going from this idea of everybody's in one place, we're going to take care of them, to everyone being dispersed, and we still have to manage and protect them and keep our information safe. So I think that the compliance around all of that and the security issues around that are the things that I've seen as being the real shift in focus. And then there's just the risk of vendors. As more and more entities move to the cloud and they're using more vendors, those vendors suddenly become much more high profile in a person's network or an entity's network. And so you have to understand their security risks. And you also have an obligation now to confirm that what they are doing meets your requirements. Again, there's any number of examples you can think about. Again, the SolarWinds was an example. Microsoft, their email incident that happened a couple of months ago. Again, situations where services that individuals rely on to provide their security suddenly were not secure. And so we have to think through how to address that, how to deal with it, and manage through it and go forward when entities are compromised.
So going forward, and get out your crystal ball here, because I want to know, what compliance issues do you see firms dealing with in the coming years? What can they be doing now to get ready for the next thing? What do you think that next thing is that firms should be preparing for?
Firms really need to be serious about evaluating the vendors that they use. Vendors are always going to tell a good story, how they've got the latest, greatest tool, and there are some amazing new functionalities coming onto the marketplace. But with that functionality has to come security. And so the question is, how do you evaluate that? How do you hold those vendors accountable? Because as we become more and more integrated, and as we leverage the services of other entities and other entities leverage our services, and we're more and more interconnected, we're all relying on each other to be secure. And so there have to be processes we can use to individually validate the vendors we use, and also to create some baselines that all of us are adhering to. The ISO certifications or the SOC certifications here in the United States, SOC audits. Do we start looking to require vendors to go through some sort of the SIG process of completing the comprehensive questionnaires? What do we do to validate security and to have everyone at an appropriate level in the industry to ensure that we can trust using them and they can trust using us? It goes both ways.
Sure. Well, big thank you, David and Net Documents, for your expertise, for supporting our compliance summit. David, how can people contact you if they have any follow-up questions?
They can use that mythical tool called Google to go find me on LinkedIn and find me there. Happy to respond that way, and reaching out through Net Documents also. Glad to respond to questions, and certainly happy to respond to questions about our service as well. But more importantly, we're focused on security today, and happy to involve myself in conversations about how we collectively move forward in addressing the risks that are out there in the marketplace and provide appropriate security together, because it is a shared journey. And if we're all working together, we're going to be in a much better place than trying to go it alone. So thank you for this opportunity. We're excited to be a part of this today and look forward to what we're going to be hearing throughout the day.
Excellent. Thank you.